Hey guys, welcome. I'm Vulture Culture, and tonight we're going to be answering the question, is the Kawai SX-240 maybe one of the best vintage synthesizers you can buy? So this is a privilege to have this in the studio. The big problem with these synthesizers is they're pretty expensive because less than 1,000 were ever made. And whenever a vintage synth is like that, it's tough. And what's interesting about this synthesizer is it's sort of a combination of 3 or 4 legendary synthesizers. So let's start with the Prophet 5. So what this synthesizer has that's borrowed from the Prophet 5 is actually SSM oscillators and filters. So for those not in the know, the original Prophet 5 used solid state music chips to create the oscillators and filters, so that and amplifiers, that's that classic Prophet sound comes from that. Then when we think about Roland, for instance, there's the Juno 6, which you can see just to the left there. And the Juno 6 is an incredible digitally controlled oscillator synth. Well, this synthesizer uses SSM's digitally controlled oscillators as opposed to their voltage controlled oscillator. So it's sort of borrowing that Juno sound. Plus, it has a built-in ensemble effect. So that's kind of borrowed from the Roland VP-330. So that's a really legendary keyboard that was used by Vangelis for the strings and the choir sounds on the Blade Runner soundtrack. And it has this beautiful ensemble effect. And in fact, I can actually just show you that right now, I think. So without it, it sounds like this. And then let's turn that on, and it sounds like this. Beyond that, it actually borrows something from the Jupiter-8. So if you can see here, it's an 8-voice programmable polyphonic synthesizer. Most synthesizers in this era had 6 voices. Prophet 5, of course, had 5. But there were very few 8-voice synths. But can you think of a famous Roland synthesizer with 8 in the title? It'd be the Jupiter-8. And one of the things that made the Jupiter-8 so special is it had a dual mode, where you could put 4 voices on the left and 4 voices on the right. So it was actually one of the first binaural synthesizers, along with actually the Yamaha CS70M, which I have just above it here. And what's so cool about that is what we're hearing right now, even with the ensemble off, is a very stereo sound, because we're actually have 2 complete separate synth voices, one for the left channel and one for the right. So we go down to 4-note polyphony, but it sounds massive. Let me take it out of dual mode, and then you can hear just all 8 voices, but down the middle. If we put it back into dual mode, I think we should get the same sound. You'd hear that voice stealing because it's a big, long pad type sound, but it's just very good at this. How many voices do you think are ideal for an analog poly? Alarock asks. I think it kind of depends on the synthesizer. It depends on what you want to make the synth really good at. So, when you think of a synth like the Korg Monopoly, for instance, that's a synthesizer that really has 1 filter for 4 oscillators. So it can play 4 notes at once paraphonically. And the synthesizer is pretty much perfect. Not much that you would want to change about that. But at the same time, if you're coming out with a modern synth nowadays, it might be hard to sell a 4 oscillator paraphonic synth just because people expect more and more and more and more, right? But I would encourage people to remember that a lot of the times with these synths, like something I've picked up on over the years, is that a synth that sort of sets out to accomplish what you want it to do, and it does that very well, is better than a synthesizer that's very ambitious, has every single feature you can think of, but doesn't stick the landing for one reason or another. Having said that, I can give you a cheat sheet. I would say 4 voices if it's not binaural. 4 voices is tough because you're gonna hear that stealing. I have a tendency to play a lot of extended chords, right? So I like big, types of chords. So when I added that 5th note in, you heard the stealing. It ripped this note from here to there. So for my playing style, 5 voices seems to be a good minimum because I tend to play 5-note chords quite a bit. Having said that, that's more like when you're playing it physically, like I'm doing right now. If I was doing a song, I could easily figure out how to play all of those chords by just using 4 notes. For instance, if I wanted to play a C minor 9th chord, right? So that would be C, E flat, G, and then the 7th, which is B flat, and then D, right? So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 notes. The way to actually do that is drop the 5th, because the 5th of all of those notes contributes the least to the impression of the sound, right? I'm going to take it out of dual mode quickly, and then I'll play the chord the way it is meant to be played. Let's put it into dual mode, and then we're going to play that chord again, and I'm going to skip the 5th. Play it down an octave, it's a little harsh. It's very beautiful. I almost think I want to adjust the key tracking a little bit on this patch. So what I'm going to do is take it out of dual, and then we have this sound. I'm going to go reinitialize it. And I'm going to bring the key tracking down a bit. So that's this knob right here. I don't know if you could see it on camera, but what I've basically done is just turn the key track and the filter down. Let's write that into memory. Come on now. What am I doing wrong? There we go. Putting it back into dual mode now. Little less harsh, perhaps. Let's see what else. Yeah, it's definitely, yeah. So Robami said some of his favorite polys are only 4 voices. I'd be curious to know what they are. K1 and K4 use that. Is that completely true? Yeah, I guess that is true, isn't it? Yeah. Voices based on voicings. Yeah. It's a good synth. What do you think of a Poly 6 for $1050? I think that's a good price, as long as you've made sure that the internal battery has been repaired on it, because of course the Poly 6 is famous for that. It was a brilliant idea Korg had. They said, hey, every 10 years, these batteries are going to die, just period. And everybody's going to lose their presets. So why don't we make a battery that recharges itself every time the synth is on? Brilliant idea. The only problem is that no one knew is that if you take that kind of battery and you don't turn the synth on for long enough, it explodes. So no one knew that back then. It's not Korg's fault. They didn't cheap out. It was a really great idea. It just happens to be that that's what happens with those types of, that was like a new technology then, right? So when you're buying a Poly 6 or a Poly 61, that's what you need to look out for, is just make sure that the previous owner, whoever you're buying it from, can confirm that it's had the battery repaired, replaced, any damage done, anything like that. There are plenty of, it's a very repairable thing. There's clone motherboards. There's all sorts of stuff you can do to get a Poly 6 back. It's not like done forever because it's enough of a problem that people have come up with ways to fix it. But yeah, that's actually a good price if you could do it. Yeah, and I put the 5th in there, Sergio, to kind of give it that sound. So what we're going to do tonight is Night Quest, welcome. We're going to just make some patches. So I'm going to start with this init patch here. Take it out of dual mode. And so we have a sawtooth wave. And what I'm going to start with one patch that I want to make that I haven't done yet with this synth. But then after that, I'm going to be trying to take viewer requests. That's what I'm thinking of. Viewer requests. So right now, kind of maybe in the back of your mind, think of, okay, is there a type of patch I'd like to learn how to do? I might not know the reference if you're like, hey, I've got this patch from this obscure prog rock record from the 70s. I might not know it. But if you describe the type of patch, I might be able to do it. So come up with that in your mind, and then later on, we'll go into that. So this first patch that we're diving into, I'm going to call it like my Dub Station Hero patch. I've done it on a lot of synths that I've been paid to work on, where I've got patches like this in Leviathan. I've got it in most of the G-Force synths, where we've got looping envelopes or LFOs creating this sort of waterfall or wind chimey type of effect. So I'd say it's a little bit of like a sound design signature of mine, and we'll see if it's possible. MIDI Alchemy, no, it is not. No velocity, no aftertouch, which is the same can be said of the Prophet 5, the Jupiter-8, the Roland VP-330, and the Juno 6 and 60. But because the synth came out later, I think it probably didn't do so well. Yes, I agree, Lonnie. By the way, that is another good reason to maybe become members of the channel, is whenever I see deals on vintage synths, I'll post it in the members only section of the channel. So Lonnie's talking about a deal on a DW8000 I saw today with the programmer. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by increasing the LFO to the amplifier. And then what we'll do is we're going to go to the LFO, increase the speed. I always say when it comes to sound design, what's your most powerful tool? Is it the oscillator? Is it the filter? It's the amplifier, right? So if you get the amplifier right, you're going to get everything else right afterwards, hopefully. So the amplifier is the biggest thing. If you think about it, it's like if the amp's off, you're not hearing anything. So that's going to actually have the biggest impact on the sound. And you can actually do way more with just one sawtooth, no detune or anything, and just controlling the LFO and EG. Now, I want to see if we change the shape here to something else. So I have it on sawtooth, and then I can reverse it, and it's going to create basically a pluck. Interestingly, that's as fast as it goes. So I think we're going to just have to work with it like that. Then I think, let me think about this for a second. Is there any way to loop anything? Because that's usually how I get here, is with some looping or something like that, but I might not get there. We can go to LFO trigger on this synth. So this is kind of like the Juno 6 where it has an LFO trigger. So we can turn that on. And now, interestingly, it sounds kind of different than when it's off. Very cool. kind of sound, but we'll leave it on for now. So now what we need, this would be very good with some delay. Adding some attack. So it sort of fades in. Let's add some release too. We can also do that with this Tontec controller here. Or, I'm sorry, stereoping controller. This is Tontec modified. It's a little extreme, so I'm going to turn it down. All right, let's leave it up for now, and I want to see if delay helps at all, if we want to add a delay to it, you know? Ooh, that's kind of interesting, isn't it? Let's add a little more, like 75. Yeah. It's also somewhat polyphonic. So let's go back into the release. We're going to dial that down, because what's happening is, one thing about this synth is that if you can get this sort of, I don't even want to call it weird, but if you make it all the way through the voices with long enough release and you trigger another note, it doesn't re-trigger the envelope, which is kind of a pet peeve of mine, but that's just what you deal with some of these synths. That might be an option in there. I'm going to be doing a lot of this stream because of the way I have the synth angled. Might be in keyboard assign. There's a couple of settings in here that I get a little bit turned around on. Yeah, because there's like poly 8, poly 4, mono. Yeah, like you can use only 4 voices, which is interesting, but it's different than dual mode for what it's worth. For now, we'll let it be. We haven't even touched the oscillators or the filters yet. So with some delay, maybe a little faster. I think I liked it where it was just a little, you know, you get that attack stage and then it starts to pluck. Now what I want to do is experiment with some noise. Wow, that's interesting. Even with the noise all the way up, it's pretty subtle. You could create pretty interesting high pass plucks, fucking words, hi-hats with this. You can turn the high pass filter all the way up. You do some cool like techno percussion with that actually. So that's fine. The noise works. We can have that basically all the way up. Let's turn the sawtooth back on. Going back, again, we're going to really nail the amplifier section first. Let's dial the LFO all the way back and find where we like it. So 50% instead of all the way, so that it's not taking over the sound. We can use a little more delay, I think. See, this is the thing about the synth. I often forget to even use the programmer because it's so easy to use directly from the front panel. Mini Freak is a really cool synth. I'd love to check it out at some point. Infundibula, how's it going? So with pads, I often don't bring the sustain down, but I'm going to this time. So I'm bringing the sustain down on the amplifier so that we have kind of an up and down motion to it. Let's see. Nice slow, and then we can bring the sustain back up. Bring the sustain pretty low. Let's see. Yeah, that's good. So very low sustain. I'd be curious to know where it's at right now. The what is it? VCA sustain is at 20 of 100 basically, or 99. So oh, what's going on with MIDI Alchemy? Oh no, borrowed back in 93. Can I get a scum cheers? We've all been there. We've all had that friend. So cheers, guys. I'm sorry for your loss. Okay, so now my new philosophy on sound design is to go to the filter. I used to sort of go to the oscillator section. But what we're actually going to do is go to the filter and crank the resonance up. You can also just do it here, but... The reason is... we can begin to sculpt the sort of magic that we want. Because if you've seen my recent video, you can't tell the difference in a mix is bullshit. You'll know that the thing that's really cool about analog synths in general, but especially the vintage ones, is that the resonance is so beautiful and characteristic and hard to emulate. So if you're just using the oscillators and the amplifiers and you're not really using the filter all that much, or you're just doing like a resonance-less pluck, right? You could probably get away with the software. It's going to get pretty close. But if you have a synth with an analog filter, I recommend cranking it a little bit more than you might be used to, because it's probably beautiful. And I came from working with software, not from working with hardware. And so I just didn't use resonance that much because I didn't think it sounded that good. The reason is because I was using plugins where the resonance didn't sound that good. This synth has SSM filters in it, so you can immediately hear how we can start to get these beautiful sounds just shy of self-oscillation. They give this synth a completely different sort of character. Then we can go to the envelope generator amount, so the amount that the ADSR for the filter is affecting it. We can bring that up. Somewhere right around there is kind of at the high end of the bats that I can hear, at least, the bat notes. So on my default patch I've made, that's sustain all the way up. Let's bring the sustain all the way down. Can also do that over here. I can just bring that all the way down. And then bring the decay and make the decay kind of slow. Slow it down even further. So that's a lot of resonance, right? It's a crazy amount of resonance. I'm actually going to slow the decay time down a little bit for the amplifier. Let's speed it up a little bit. You'll hear there's no release right now, so when I take my fingers off, it does a thunk sound. Which maybe is what you want. That's actually not a terrible sound, right? It's kind of interesting. I actually kind of like it, but for this case, we'll probably add some release to it. But for now, slow, because we have an attack stage, right? So let me see if I can pull up the I don't know how well you can see it on the screen, but if I pull up the filter attack is 0, right? And 95 decay. If I go to 85 decay on the amplifier and 80 attack, so if you think about that, if those numbers, which they probably aren't absolute values, but let's say, then that's like 165 by the time the decay finishes, right? Versus the 95 on that. Do you see what I'm saying? Like the attack plus decay equals 165, right? Am I doing the math right? 80 plus 85, 165 versus the decay is only 95 on the filter. So we can probably bring the decay down a little bit cheated in so that yeah, it's funny how finicky it is, only by a little bit. Like, just brought 5 out to 80. So the reason I'm doing this too, by the way, let's just bring the amplifier sustain all the way up, right? So we had it at 20. Let's bring it all the way up. Now, on its own, this might sound kind of cool. Let's see, where we're at here. Because we're not listening to this in a song, right? It sounds beautiful and big. Now, if you were putting this in a mix, that's just like a lot of low end. So we have some options on a synth like this. We could use the continuous high pass filter. This synth has it. The Juno 6 has it. The rest of the Junos, the high pass filter is stepped. The JAX the high pass filter is stepped. So this one has a continuous one. So we could just do that, right? Let's do that. Let's just see. I'm going to bring the high pass filter halfway up and see how that sounds by comparison. Versus, yeah, it's actually kind of nice just pulling out some of that low end. That might be the answer. And then we could just play with the sustain and just maybe a little, so that kind of let us cheat a little more sustaining the sound, because I do like how the resonance sort of chews on the signal on the way down. Now, with this type of sound, there's times where you want to use key tracking and times where I think it's not as good to use key tracking. Let me see. I believe it's off. Oh, it's like at like 50. Interesting. Okay, fine. I'll leave it there. I like it. 50 is often where I'll leave key tracking on a lot of patches. So it opens up a little, but not all too much. I was going to say if it opens too much on a sound like this, it's going to lead to that filter sweep being a little unintelligible across the different octave ranges. So I really like what we have so far. Let's finally put some release into the filter just to see. I'm going to use maybe about half. Let me see what the release is here. It's 50 on the amplifier. So let's go for 25 on the filter and see how that sounds. Oh, we need more than that. We might actually use more filter release. Yeah, something like that, so. Yeah, that sounds really good. Let's bring the filter decay down a little bit to like 90. Let's see how that sounds. Even a little faster than that. I mean, it's on its own. It's so ambient and beautiful. I like it being really slow, but I think if it was in a track, you'd need it to be faster than that, right? I would like to point out to everybody, we really haven't touched the oscillators at all. Cheers, guys. We've just been really creating the sound with the filter and the amplifier. And again, I think for a lot of people coming from software world, which is where I came from, you're so used to wavetables and creating sounds that way that you're very like oscillator focused. But if you work backwards and you go from the amplifier to the filter, right, and you get the character you want from the filter, guess what? Whatever you do with the oscillators, that's just like money. That's just the icing on the cake. So we have a sub oscillator. Let's see how that sounds with that on. Here's with it on. I'll do it on and off so we can make a decision. That's on now. Off. It does add a little growliness, right? But problem is then we kind of need to move the whole synth up an octave because this note becomes too low. So in this case, I don't know if I really need it. Let's turn digitally controlled oscillator 2 on. Now, if you turn it on, you get this kind of weird sound, right? Because you've got two oscillators that are very tightly tuned because they're digitally tuned. So what we need to do is add some detune, and on this synth you don't need much. So even just -1 will give us this beautiful soaring. We could take it further. So -5, right? We could see. Sounds pretty good. Let's try turning the pulse oscillator on. Because like on a Juno, you can pull the saw and square off of the same oscillator. We can get pulse width modulation here. Oscillator on. So we need to change the range to 8 feet. That way we have access to this low note now, because with the sub oscillator I don't ever like it when a note on the keyboard can't be played because it's too low. So we've sort of worked backwards on this whole thing. We can, of course, take the oscillators up or down. So we could take that second oscillator up an octave. Now, the way the gain staging works in the synth is interesting because it's reducing volume into the filter as it goes. So sometimes you can get a beefier sound by turning something off. So I'm going to try turning the saw off real quick. It like balances it. But in this case, I think it sounds very good with that. So that's the thing that's so great about the SX-240 compared to something like a Juno, right? You've got a sub oscillator like it's a Juno, but you've got two oscillators like it's a Jupiter, right? There's very few synths that are like that from back in the day anyways. I mean, I think most of the modern sequential stuff has that sort of stuff. Let's take the detune down, maybe even try to see if we can get it seasick. Oh, we did it. My ears are kind of sensitive to that thing. Sometimes I would say that's pretty close to where my ear gets a little... envelope controlled pitch. Let's see. Tone generator. We didn't even turn the we do have a it's either cross modulation or ring modulation. I don't think I can do pitch to... It doesn't look like that. I mean, I do have some ways to cheat it. I've got glissando, like a CS80 and portamento. But aside from that, I don't think so. I don't think I have any way to do it. What you're talking about, adding some pitch, because that would be really nice, like using another envelope to slowly fade that pitch from out of tune into tune, you know? That's a great idea, Infidebula. I just don't think the synth can do it, sadly. Let's try turning the cross modulation on, which is called brass on this synth. You know, at this point... we're playing the filter so much that it's not incredibly obvious to me that all of the changes we've done with the oscillator are having that much impact. Now, let's see, where's my resonance at? It's at 96%. If I bring that all the way down, right, then these differences... become more apparent. And in fact, that's the advantage of making the sound with a lot of resonances. You can always dial it back, and then everything kind of works perfectly. Like all of your envelopes and stuff are timed right. If you've ever done a patch without resonance and then got the envelopes where you think they're right and then crank the resonance, you'll often find that the resonance now has thrown the whole thing off. Now, in this case, I really like it, just... DJ Jackal, welcome. Yeah. Does it have chorus? It has an ensemble, so let's kick that on. Now, there's a reason I haven't so far, because the ensemble's great, but you'll see... It's pretty fucking good, isn't it? Wow. It's kind of got that shimmery... Ooh, you know, that might be the answer. But one of the things I wanted to see, we're going to turn it off for now, and we need to save this bad boy. So I'm going to go to memory write. It's going to prompt me for a name. So one of my favorite things about this synth is you can actually use this key bed here as a way to type it in. So we're going to call this... are you guys... we'll call this... I was going to say Mizurna Falls, but let's call it Twin Peak. So you just type in Twin Peak. So much better than even like modern synths. I fucking hate that. And then what we do is memory write name. Wait, I fucked it up. Twin Peak. So INPEAKEE 4. And now memory write's gone. So what that means is we've written it to memory. And I can come back and I have that sound. So we haven't lost it. Now, if I put it into upper lower mode and I set this now, what we've done is we have the same patch on the left and the right. But what I've been interested to see is using this LFO aggressively. If we were able to get, because there's actually 2 LFOs in the synth. There's the, it seems like there's only one, but because you can use the synth, there's 2 of them. So I was curious if we're going to get like crazy left to right movement. So this experiment, we're going to discover this live together and we'll just see how it sounds. If it doesn't sound, like incredible, we'll use the ensemble because it sounded great. Dual mode, upper, lower. There we go. Let's see how it sounds. So because it has that resonance, we're getting definitely some stereo width from the resonance. Cheers, guys. But this is a, I don't know if you can see it. It's a Kawai, not a Taisco, Luis. But to me, it's actually not, it's very cool. And of course, like the advantage could be like if we wanted to really fuck with it, we're currently in lower mode, right? So now I could go to the speed of the LFO and change that. Even by just 1 degree, it should start to kind of wobble away. So what we've done really is create this like super stereo because the 2 LFOs can be different speeds, but we can't really save it. We could save it as like another patch, right? Which is like almost the same thing and vary some of the settings so that we could get this sound. But I'm going to be honest with you. This is one where I think I kind of like it with the ensemble on a little more, surprisingly. It's just so angelic. Let's see if there's any reason to increase the EG amount here. Just a touch, 1. Yeah, I actually prefer it that way. It's like a patch I wouldn't use the dual mode. Now you can use dual mode, right? So if we wanted to, even with the ensemble on, I could put it into dual mode and make sure that I've got the right patch. And now we should be able to get that same sound more or less. I have to keep juggling the volume here. You don't really hear the stereo-ness because what's interesting is the way the synth works. You can think of it as we have left and right, but the ensemble has a mono input. So what it's going to do is it's going to sum that to mono, goes into the ensemble, and then back out the ensemble is what we're hearing. So you don't really hear the difference. I'd be curious to see if we change this speed, though, and if we'll hear anything interesting. You do hear it, I think, because the dry mix is still... So we're getting the vibrato from the 3 bucket brigade delays. Essentially, that's what a chorus is it's a vibrato mixed in with the dry signal. I think the dry signal is still stereo. But to me, there's not really enough of an advantage to do it that way if the ensemble's on. I think it's just so gorgeous on its own that we need not use dual mode. Definitely one of my favorite patches I've done. Okay, so now we have reached that point I was talking about an hour ago. Sorry, we've made one patch. That's about how long it takes for me to make patches when I'm doing them for companies. So now would be a great time for you guys to shout out ideas that you'd like for me to try to do. Oh, that must have been awesome, MIDI. Yeah, so if anybody has anything, yeah. Mighty Pinto, I didn't see you show up. How's it going, my friend? SSQ's synthesizer video. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that. Yes. Plucky harp from hell. Soft brass lead. So there are actually just like some really decent brass patches in this somewhere. So like trumpet, for instance. Like if you want that Prophet 5 brass type of sound, this patch is... And then let's see, brass is actually off, which is funny. And then DCO2 is off. Let's turn it on and add some fine tune. So just by turning the oscillator on, DCO2, and then adding 2 cents. I don't really think it's 2 cents. I think it's more than that because this is pretty lush already. Let's see if there's any other good ones here. Harmonica. We've done some other patches on here from other ones. Flute. It's okay. Vibraphone. This is a Reese we made. On a previous stream. Got some piano sounds, you know. Not really the best there. The Kawai K3 actually has better, I would say. A nice honky-tonk piano. Roses, this is one of the coolest patches ever. So, can I get a... yeah, just hit up Miss FD right now. What's she doing? I did start with a 5th patch, so we'll have to see about that. Warm evolving pad. Okay, I see, Pinto. Some of these are, some of them are ones we've made in previous streams. Trancy arpeggios. We're getting a lot of requests for the brasses. So let's go ahead and we'll make my attempt at a brass patch here then. And I saw harps too. What I've done is what I tend to do with a synth like this is go through and if there's a patch I think isn't particularly inspiring at all, then I'll just initialize it, which in this case I had to program my own initialized patch and then use that. So brass, let's think about that for a second. So the first thing we need to do is go to the attack again. So just adding some attack to it, right? Just a little bit. Because that's what's going to sell the brass. Sustain, let's bring it all the way down so we can make the shape of the amplifier. So nice slow decay. And then we can bring the sustain up a bit. I would like to point out, like, how close we're already in the neighborhood. I mean, obviously this is not... If someone was paying me to make a brass sound on this synth, I wouldn't just sawtooth, attack, decay, sustain, release, and call it a day. You'll notice we don't really need a lot of release. So that's just a little. Just a little, so 25 attack, 24 attack, 24 release, just to make it symmetrical. Yeah, we need that fucking blip. Can I get some scum blip in the chat? Cheers, guys. Fucking shit. The blip years are behind me. So that's the beginning of it. Now, if I was working for Oberheim, I would go, okay, let's turn that fucking sawtooth right the fuck off. Let's go to the pulse, turn it on. Pulse width mode, right? So when I have it in pulse width mode, I have control over the pulse width. But I want it in PWM mode. So let's do that. And you can hear that even with PWM all the way up, it's not crazy, right? It's just slow. Let's bring the sustain up a bit, I think. I can do it just here. This is a synth brass after all, right? So big thing we need to do is just go to the LFO and crank that speed up. Wrong LFO. Dial it back a bit. DCO2 on. DCO2 is always a square wave. So what's interesting about this is we're actually kind of getting into more of like a woodwind sort of territory, aren't we? Definitely seems to be. Yeah, the pitch, the attack pitch bend, the blip is going to be difficult, unfortunately. Let's bring in that noise, which will probably take it about all the way. There we go. So we got noise in there. Let's turn DCO2 off. Turn the sub oscillator on. Go to the noise just a little bit there. Tuck it in. Not too much. Change the range. Same idea. So I think we need that. Let's bring that sawtooth back in. So DCO2 off. DCO2 on. Actually, I don't like it for this one. I think the saw pulse width modulation sub combo is good. Changed my mind, sustain all the way up. Just a little out. Now, someone said earlier it needs chorus, so I want to throw it on. I'm probably not going to use it, but see, there is a high pass that goes into the BBDs here, so we lose some of that low end. Keith, your wish is my command. Not too much. It's okay, but it's, you know, it's a lot. What we really need is to bring some movement in with that filter. So keyboard tracking, let's bring it to 50%. I should build that into my preset there. Let's bring it down. So what I want to find is that which harmonic I want. Do I want really low? Let's crank the fucking resonance. That'll answer the question. Yeah, we're gonna go all the way down. So, of course, we're gonna need some EG amount there. So, same idea. We're going to add a lot of release. But the trick is going to be attack decay, right? So, 0 decay right now, so I can really... I think a fast is good, and then we'll really tune it with the decay. You need very little attack on this type of a sound. Turn brass on. And DCO2 is off, but that doesn't mean that we can't tune it. So let's change that. DCO2 coarse. So we're actually using that oscillator to FM oscillator 1. With it off, on. We can actually create more vibrato by setting it to -23. Right. Or let's fine tune it. So just subtle amounts of that. So we don't really need a lot of resonance on this one. I kind of like the lack of resonance here. But to me, that kind of takes us... Because with the resonance, it gets, you know, really thin. Which is beautiful, but it needs some. attack on the filter. We don't need much, do we? That a little further. Detuning the oscillator we can't hear to affect the cross modulation, right? So we've, that's some big brain shit. I live in Florida, if you were asking me. You might be asking somebody else in the chat. Yeah, aquatic, one of the big things, I see you said sounds like strings earlier, and what's interesting about synths is depending on the filter really pushes certain synths, like, for instance, on the modulus behind me that you can see right there, everything sounds brass on that. I can't get that thing to sound like strings to save my life. And on this one, this synth definitely speaks more stringy. It needs that fucking blip, doesn't it? We've almost finished the sound, but we're not using the LFO at all. So we need to use the LFO to break up that sound, right? Because without it... So we're going to add some LFO. We just need 1. The setting of 1. See if we slow it down. If we slow it down, we get that more Blade Runner-y. Might be better for this sound. To get it to speak with more brass. There's definitely ways that you can do that fast brass thing, but I think you need the blip. Otherwise... Let's check it again with the ensemble. I'm going to ask you guys one more time soon as we close in on designing this patch for one more patch idea. So go ahead and think about it, and then I'm going to ask in a few minutes. Yeah, then it just gets like VP-330 stringsy, so I don't need that. Very cool. All right, I'm happy with that. We're going to write memory. We're going to call this one, we'll call this Oberheim for lack of any creativity, right? It also happens to be a 4 or an 8-letter word, which is what we're looking for. E5. There we go. Although it's kind of like Ober 80-ish, you know what I mean? So let's check it out in dual mode now. So there we go. And upper is Oberheim, right? Let's see how it sounds. Jesus. Jesus. I also use octave up mode. I'll make the lower up an octave. I think it needs a little more attack on it, so we're back to upper mode here. Yeah, I think it's just in dual mode. It sort of triggers that way. That sounds pretty good with the octave up. Gives it that more Vangelis-y type brass tone, doesn't it? I think when I sample it, I'm going to sample it like that. Plus, it's got the sub-oscillator, so there's still some oscillators on one side that are on that same sort of pitch. So we've really got like three octaves going on there on a single note. All right, let's see. Monster Resonant Unison Bass Patch. Yeah, Dark Vicious Techno Bass. I am usually the first to mock. That's right. Like the K4 has an Oberheim patch and it sucks. And now I've just committed. I've become what I hate. Let's agree with the crowd. Let's see how the bass in this thing can get. Perfect. That's what we'll do then. Very fast attack and an instant stop. Sure. I don't think the envelopes are super fast, so we'll do that. And some moving bass. Okay, so we'll make kind of like a fast attack, but also some movement in it, bass sound. So that'll be cool. That'll be a good one to go out on. So upper. Okay, fast attack. So we could do that a couple of ways. One is we could sheet it with the envelope. So let's bring the sustain all the way down. Oh, that sounds so beautiful, doesn't it? Through that reverb. Way it just falls away. So we've already got a pluck, right? Without even having to do anything. But we're going to make that really fast. Let's see how fast we can take that. So a setting of like 20 is not bad. Go faster than that. We're going to just lose everything. So let's bring the sustain up, you know. So you can hear by bringing the sustain down by about 40. We're building in a little bit of attack. We probably don't even need to bring it down that far because once we bring the filter in, just a little thwap on the front end there is actually not so bad. Let's go to the range while I'm thinking about that and bring that up to 8. Because we know we're going to use the sub-oscillator. That's forever ago. We did a shootout stream between this and the JX3P, I want to say, probably about 2 years ago. And the JX3P sounded really good. But what it couldn't do is bass, because when you take a JX3P, I look at it like it's over there. It's not over there anymore. Any of the JXs, any synth that that has a separate oscillator as opposed to a square wave, as opposed to a sub oscillator, I mean to say, is you're losing the phase coherence, because on a synth with a sub oscillator, what's happening is every time that signal does an oscillation. So if it's a sawtooth wave, it like starts high and then goes low, right? And then it starts over again. Each time it does that, it flips a switch in the synth. It's literally like swapping a switch, and it goes high, and then the next time that triggers and it goes down, it switches the switch low. So it goes high, low, each time. And if you think about that, what kind of a wave does that create? It creates a square wave, right? So that's what a sub-oscillator is, but it's perfectly phase aligned with the other oscillator. You can probably get there with hard sync, thinking about that now. We're going to turn the sub-oscillator on. So this is how we can get those like SH-101 type sounds, right? Because it's got that tightness to it. Just to kind of illustrate my point, if I turn that off and I turn DCO2 on, and then I just turn the range of DCO2 down, it's not the same. On this synth, it's pretty fucking close. I think that has something to do with the way that that second DCO is created. I think it's being pulled off of, I don't understand how it could be pulled off the same oscillator, but then be able to be detuned. But whatever it is, actually on this synth, you don't even really need to worry about it. The difference is just kind of like what harmonics you get, and the sub oscillator is beefier. Purity Ring. I love Purity Ring, although I can't think of what the bass... I mean, they have many songs, right? So it could be a bunch of different stuff. Yeah, it does sound great. It's not a perfect synth, but it constantly surprises me. So we definitely need to get the brass involved if we want to get some like spooky movement. That's the coolest thing. So I don't really hear anything, but what we can do is DCO2 is off. Let's turn it on. Actually does add some interesting, even beefier low end, because it's a square wave down there. Oh, I love a good Reese, right? Magnifique. So that's solved itself. I don't really need too much. The brass is on, DCO2's on, some detune. Sounds really good. I don't tend to use a lot of LFO to the oscillators. I would if I could route it to just one oscillator, but since it's going to two, I don't really need too much of the LFO doing that. We haven't turned on any PWM. Let's just check that out real quick. We'll have to speed up the LFO as well. So this is off. This is on. I like it off, actually. I think it's fine without it. We do get more decoherence of the sound, like a good idea in general. If a sound is getting too LFO-y, where it's like too cyclical, you can just bring in something else that's, you know, at a different tuning or something. In this case, I think I'm okay with it. Oh, cool. You're going to go see Purity Ring? That's sick. I'd love to see that band. Yes, I'm still going to make it more of a pluck bass, Victor. I just want to sort of... I know I've been saying I've done it three different ways, right? First, we did VCA, VCF, oscillator. Then we did like VCA, oscillator, VCF. And now we're kind of doing it that way again. So I'm sort of breaking my own rule. But I knew we would need that sub oscillator, if nothing else. So let's, if it's bass, key tracking all the way off, right? That's kind of my, I don't want to say rule, but the key tracking all the way off is going to keep that sound fat because that filter's never going to move anywhere. And as we go high up, you know, once we get up here, it's like, I don't need that anyways because we're making a bass sound. Sound like this. Let's bring the resonance almost all the way up. No, maybe the resonance all the way down. think for this one, we're going to leave the resonance down. This synth is got a SSM filter, so it's like a Prophet 5 in the sense that as you crank the resonance, you're going to lose a lot of low end. And so for the bass, in this case, using the resonance, like if I crank the resonance now, it'll be too high. Kind of cool talky sort of sound. But so then what we do is we bring in the EG. Now the trick with synth basses for me too is I don't want it to go too high. I used to do that all the time. It definitely has like a mid 2000s industrial sound. Like if you go all the way up there, you can get these, you know, type sounds. Let's bring it down so that the attack doesn't even open all the way necessarily. Although we might use it. We might use it. Sustain all the way down. And the decay fast. Going back and setting that EG. Now, if we use the EG all the way up, you know, we can get these sorts of almost virusy type sounds, right? But then you could just buy a fucking virus. So what I'm listening for is like those really high, almost noise, like 10K, 5K frequencies. And then trying to pull those out of the sound. Oh, see, like, just by bringing it from 99 to 81, there's a fatness there. I do think that this is one of those synths where it's got digital envelopes as opposed to analog ones, so you're not going to get quite the snappiness, which is why it's helpful that we've cheated a little bit more attack with the envelope in. One thing I wasn't thinking about too is keyboard mode. We could send keyboard assign to mono, right? And one advantage to that is we could actually add some release, which makes it a little easier to play. So I'm going to put 50 release on the filter, and let's see what that sounds like. So it's short release, but it's still there. Right? I think that's pretty close. We're definitely getting there. And yeah, it's definitely kind of AX80-ish for sure. Now, let me look at the envelope. I don't think we could... It would be really nice to go negative, wouldn't it? If we could do that with the envelope. My boy 40 Thieves has one of these, and he's really good at it. So there's some part of me that's wondering, is there anything I've missed? I think it took me a couple of streams to even find the dual mode. But if we could go negative with it, right? We could use the attack as the decay stage and the decay stage to slowly open the filter, which would be sick. But I don't see a way to go negative with EG. Pretty sure the EG is just positive, unfortunately. Let's bring in the LFO to the filter. a little bit, and then we can slow that down a little. Let's bring the release down a bit. It's a little much. What is it? Good snap from the amplifier, right? So the amplifier is really saving us here. If we didn't have that, this would suck. Let's see if I tighten that up even further. So I like a slightly slower decay sound on the filter, I think. Yeah, something like that would be pretty good. Yeah, so it's a pretty good, like, techno goth bass line. I think we could apply a little more LFO to the filter just in case we thought that might help it move. So so that's that decoherence I'm talking about. If it was getting a little LFO-y from the detune, actually, it's not the LFO, it's the detune of the oscillators. But by adding in kind of a similarly pitched amount of movement with the filter, but not exactly, now we have two separate sort of cyclical motions going, and that's kind of the secret to keeping these sounds from getting too boring. Split the difference. Little resonance is nice. I actually think with just a little bit of resonance gives it that purr, you know, I love that. Oh, I really like that. Okay. So we're going to, that's E6 memory, right? We're going to call this one goth. Dads. D-A-D-S. E6. That should do it. See if I did that right. Good. So, dual mode, lower, E6, and let's see what we got. Yeah. Tell me how should I feel to treat me like you do. Those who, you know, and then anywhere else you want to be in that sort of neighborhood. Of course, that's that sort of like, but. The purr is really satisfying, isn't it? DJ VN, I think I missed you there. Victor Nova, is there any movies about synths? Not documentaries, but an actual movie. That's a good question. Not that I can think of. Not off the top of my head. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, MIDI Alchemy. So I was thinking about sample and hold at random. I don't believe this synth has the waveforms we have are square, triangle, saw, either way. So we don't have that option. It does have portamento. And we could slow down the attack. So we take it out of dual mode and we go back to upper here. Oh, the purr is nice. We could, if we wanted to get rid of like that attack, we just bring the EG down. We kind of have our sound there, but I like the... And then putting it in dual mode is pretty cool. The advantage with not using key tracking is we've kind of got that per frequency, and it doesn't matter what octave I'm on, right? We could open it up if we wanted to make it less of that type of thing, though. What we could do, I'm going to leave it saved like that, but we'll use like a slower attack and or a slower decay on both of those, and then more of like an all-purpose bass. Versus... So it depends on what you want to do. If you're going to do something sequenced, I would use the tighter decay times, right? Because it's going to sound really good sequenced. If you were going to do like playing it live type of a thing, I would slow the decay down because it's just like you'll never be able to play it that perfectly. So let's review what we created today. We've got this floating patch that I started off with. So let's make sure that that's E2. And E2, bring this down. Good movie soundtrack with good synth themes. Well, of course, if you haven't listened to the Blade Runner soundtrack, that would be where I'd start you at. I don't mean that in an insulting way. I know there's other movies that have incredible synth scores. The new Bob Lazar movie. Okay, and then we have this Twin Peaks one that we created. This is like the most SX-240 patch ever because it's just so SX-240. You would have and that's like what I try to get out of a synth, whether it be hardware, software, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's like, what can this do that no other synth can do? Because we can make cool bread and butter sounds all day, but no synth that doesn't have these BBDs in it, like a set of stereo ensemble BBDs like a VP-330. But see, the VP-330 isn't going to have 8-note true polyphony, right? It's a string machine, so it's really paraphonic. So this is like, I can't think of that many synths that have stereo ensemble off of the top of my head, vintage ones anyways. And for that matter, like if you care about the difference between something like a digital ensemble recreation, like the one in the Poly 6 is just terrible. The Poly 6 VST, that is, I mean. The ensemble in the CS70M and the Poly 6 are both monaural. They're not stereo. I'm trying to think of anything else. I know the Moog Opus, but again, that's a string machine. I can't think of many synths that have that. So you're just not going to get that sound. You're not going to get the sound of this SSM. It's SSM filter. Very cool. Dario Argento movies, right? So Suspiria is a good one. That's a good synth score. What are some other good synth scores? Cheers, guys. Let me think about that for a second. It's worth pondering upon. What are some of my favorite scores that I listen to, actually, that have a lot of synths? The problem is I do like some scores that probably were made on VSTs, you know. Like the new Alien Romulus score. I was listening to Oliver Harper's recent like playthrough commentary. So you sync up his commentary. Oliver Harper makes incredible retrospectives. He's a awesome YouTube channel if you haven't checked it out, if you like old movies. And he's doing a watch through with Bad Movie Bible, and they're talking about it. And Bad Movie Bible's like, this is the worst score I've ever heard in any movie, because he just puts these dubstep sounds in the middle of it. And I started laughing because he's so right. What's his name who did the score? Why am I blanking on it right now? Works with Hans Zimmer, did the score for 2049. He has a Hydrasynth, and he uses the sort of dubsteppy sounds in it sometimes in his scores. So he hated it. I like the score for Romulus, but I understand. It's probably just because I like the score for Alien, and it kind of sounds like that. Yeah. Drive with Ryan Gosling, sure. That's a good one. I have not done any videos on the Axis Virus TI2. I mean, here's the thing. The Virus TI2 was ubiquitous when I started making music in the 2000s. And every studio I was at had it. CHP Records had a Virus TI2, which is where my first record came out on. And in fact, the computer I'm still streaming on is an evolution off of the studio computer that I bought from them. I've rebuilt it with new motherboards, CPUs, you know, everything 3 or 4 times now. But there's still like the original files from CHP Records on that computer. So I could like do a remix of some of the music that was on it at the time from those guys, Mark Starr, DJ Grow. It's probably some Jacqueline Hyde and Dynamix 2 stuff in there too. And then of course, Jacqueline Hyde and Dynamix 2, those guys used viruses. Everybody was using viruses. So I have this weird sort of thing with viruses where I'm like, okay, I get it. It probably was I mean, even with my last stream, looking at the Waldorf XTK, trying to do a December 23 song, trying to use that synth to do that, I was like, it was a little bit of a letdown for me. I thought it was a fun stream, but you really like trying to make it sound like a virus. It didn't do it very well. I think if you're not using that synth as a wavetable synth, it's just not going to necessarily do it. So anyways, that's a long-winded way of saying that the Virus TI2 is probably the best sounding. I really like the Korg MS-2000, but I'd probably have to say the Virus TI2 is the best sounding virtual analog synth of all time. And therefore, I'm a little bored. You know, like I like synths that have character. That's obviously why I like this one. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to pick on you, Husker. Hopefully you take it that it's just kind of like a jumping off point here for a ramble. But there's almost something so exactly what you think it is with the virus, and so much of the music you know, Combi Christ and all of that type of stuff. A frequent viewer of the channel, I wouldn't be surprised if he was watching right now, Sebastian Comore, programmed the original sounds on the virus, you know? So it's a big part of the legacy of the type of music I like and everything. There's just something about it that makes me go, I don't even know why I would have it on the channel. I know I probably will have to at some point, but I'm not interested in buying one, I think. I don't think I'm buying another virtual analog ever again. I've sold every single one of them. And after last week's stream, I felt like the Waldorf XTK, I was like, huh. But again, I don't think I should have used it the way I was to try to make it sound like a virus. So anyways, those are my thoughts about that. Ooh, Underworld. I haven't thought about that in a while. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump. Oh, that was Victor Nova who said that. My bad. Victor Nova. Didn't mean to like go way off of that on that one. Terminator soundtrack. Original Terminator would have been a Prophet T8, I want to say. And then followed up by an Emulator 2 on Terminator 2 is the main synth. Alex Ball has videos on that. I guess a lot of the synth music I think of is like Twin Peaks or Miami Vice, but those were TV shows. Star Trek The Next Generation, the first season is almost entirely D50 synthesis, so that's very good. What else? Babylon 5. If you want a good synth soundtrack, Babylon 5 is fucking incredible with Chris Franke Frankie from Tangerine Dream did the soundtrack for that show. Sick music. What else have I listened to recently? See, I've been watching a lot of old sci-fi shows, which I quite like. I feel like there's not, I don't know, something missing from the modern stuff. I think maybe I've lost my mind though, because like it can't be that synths were better back then and TV shows. Something's wrong with me. Rocky Horror, of course. I should, of course, mention A Clockwork Orange. So Wendy Carlo did that. And probably like the first time a lot of people ever heard synth music was in the score of that incredible movie. I'll have to check that out, Medi Alchemy. Cat People from 1982. I definitely need to check that one out. I'm okay with a little cheesy. Synapse Audio, for sure. Anything Hans Zimmer uses is probably pretty good. Yes. Let's see. Trinity VST. I've got it. I bought it. Paid hard cash for it at some point. The Hunger. Ooh, I haven't done that. I haven't seen that one. Total Recall was good. I don't remember the score though, which isn't good because I'm usually paying attention to scores. I almost think like, for instance, I love the music to Dark Crystal, and I almost think I'm like, if it didn't have that soundtrack, I wouldn't be able to get through that movie because the plot, the writing isn't all the way there. Puppets are incredible, but like, you know, it's the difference between some of those other movies that were like that. Other good synth scores. Yeah, I mean, anything Angelo Badalamenti and David Lynch is going to be synthy. Like Eraserhead is a really good one if you want like, basically, a lot of people say that David Lynch invented the dark ambient genre with Eraserhead. You don't have to believe me on that. That's just like the Wikipedia article says that, more or less. Tron soundtrack, right. I didn't think about that. That's a huge one. Well, Synsonic, very, very true there. Trying to think of some other good ones. This isn't something obvious, but if you like Blade Runner and you haven't listened to Antarctica by Vangelis, he made it like within about a year of Blade Runner, and it's a little simpler of a score. It's for a Japanese nature documentary on Antarctica, which I haven't seen yet. I need to watch, but just the soundtrack alone is like kind of like some B-sides off of the Blade Runner soundtrack. It's really good. Lots of CS80. Some really cool stuff went into that. Trent Reznor also did like, he did The Social Network or whatever the Facebook movie was. 70s Doctor Who, I don't know. There's like a very famous BBC video for the 1980 version of the soundtrack where they used a CS80 for the bass and an ARP Odyssey, I want to say, for the lead on Doctor Who. But I don't know what they used on the 80s. Probably a theremin for the lead, because that was all they had back then. Wow. Seventh Row for Philip Glass is pretty great. Halloween, right? Yeah, all of the John Carpenter's. The Thing by Morricone. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name 100% right there, but the Thing soundtrack where he's doing sort of a John Carpenter-esque score. Really good score. Worth checking out. Sick movie as well. I haven't seen Escape from New York. I'm fucked up. Okay, The Hunger. Yeah, The Social Network. Wendy Carlo is should be a synth legend to everybody. It's so important to emphasize Wendy Carlo, probably above all, because Bob Moog, and I mean this with all the respect in the world, he really wasn't a musician. You know, like he didn't, I'm sure he probably made some good music, but he was interested in the instruments, but he needed Wendy Carlo and Herb Deutsch and other people to help actually make the instrument be usable. Keith Emerson, absolutely too, but probably Wendy Carlo above all else made the synths what they are today, or even what they were back then, right? So Hackers I need to see. Oh wait, I think I've seen it. No, I've seen it. But yeah, John Carpenter. Everybody should. There's no one though, in my opinion, and it's just that's my opinion, who deserves more respect than Wendy Carlo, because not only did she prove to the world with Switched On Bach that electronic music was music, because up until that point, people did not think it was music. They were like, this is some sort of weird experimental stuff that the hippies at college are doing. And then she did Switched On Bach, and the whole world is the best-selling classical record ever for a long time. And then A Clockwork Orange, the soundtrack, and then Tron, right? I mean, crazy. Vangelis gets like a lot of love because his scores are just fucking beautiful, but and anthemic and hopeful and dark and everything. But Wendy Carlo probably had more to do with the creation of these instruments as we know it, the creation of the Moog modular, which became the Mini Moog, and then Keith Emerson too, and Wakeman from Yes. Those, like, when you think about, I'm really just going off on tangents at this point, but it's the end of the stream. When you think about Emerson's Moog modular, you know why we have a Mini Moog? It's because Emerson was talking with Bob Moog, and Emerson's like, yeah, this is how I do it. I've got 3 oscillators that run into a filter that run into an amplifier, right? This whole stream was based off of taking 2 oscillators and a sub into a filter into an amplifier. We're still following the archetype that Keith Emerson set up on his Moog modular. It was like Bob Moog was like, okay, what if we, instead of having a modular where everything could do everything, anything could be patched anywhere, what if we made a product that was just the Keith Emerson most common setup, right? And that's how he did it, right? He just basically focused on those oscillators. Sometimes that third oscillator was in, sometimes he used it as an LFO, so yeah. That's so crazy, Husker. The Thing, though, is very good. What about The Keep? I haven't seen that one. Halloween is very good. Let's see. Legend 1985. Oh shit, I haven't seen that one. Aquatic. Ridley Scott and Tangerine Dream. Come on now. So I think I've rambled enough. Thank you guys for putting up with me on this one. That was kind of it was fun though to have a more chill sound design, relaxing stream. I think we made 3 patches, which was not a world record, but I think there were 3 very good patches. So let's get one more scum cheers. I got to finish this off. Continue to be excellent, guys. Listen, Monday, we're doing a members-only live stream, 9 p.m. Eastern, taking the legendary synth samples and putting it in to Omnisphere. And then when we... then next Wednesday, we're going to be doing a new legendary stream on the Akai S900 if everything goes to plan. So, cheers, guys. Continue to be excellent, and I'll see you there.